Hey there, Prof. Aram here, and in this video we're going to look at the present value of multiple cash flows. In the previous video we looked at the ways we can find the future value of multiple uneven cash flows, but in finance, more often than not, we want to find present value of these cash flows. We have, for example, a project that provides multiple cash flows in the future and we want to find out the present value today. Or we have a bond that is promised to pay us some cash flow in the future, we want to find out the price of the bond today, and so on and so forth. So most of the times in finance, we're trying to calculate the present value of the future cash flows that we are expected to receive. So let's look at this case. So here again, we are not looking at equal cash flows, we're looking at uneven cash flows. So for example, you're offered an investment that will pay you $200 in 1 year, $400 in the next year, $600 year after that, and $800 in the last year, at the end of the fourth year. If your rate of return or discount rate is 12%, what is the most you should pay for this opportunity, for this series of cash flows? In other words, what is the present value of this series of cash flows that you have here? You can do this just with the knowledge of time value of money that you had from before. So all you need to do is to discount this $200 for 1 year, $400 for 2 years, the $600 value for 3 years, and then this one for 4 years. It's actually fairly simple. You have to do it 4 times, and then all you need to do is just add the present value of these individual cash flows to find the present value of the series of cash flows as a whole. But as you can imagine, not every situation can be this easy. Sometimes you may have to find a present value of 30, 50, or even 100 cash flows in the future. So finding the present values one by one can be very cumbersome. So we are going to rely on the tools that we have to find the present values. Okay, so we can use Excel or we can use the financial calculator. I'm going to show you the financial calculator first, and then I'll present the Excel one. Let's go to BA2 Plus Professional and calculate the present value of the cash flows that we have. So because we have uneven cash flows, we need to use this cash flow function. I'm just going to push cash flow function. And because we don't have any cash flow at time 0, I'm going to leave cash flow 0 at 0. Cash flow 1 will be 200. You need to press enter before moving on. So cash flow 1 is going to be 200. And the frequency of this 200 cash flow would be 1, because if you have several 200 cash flows consecutively back to back, then we could use frequency. But because after 200 we have 400, so the frequency of this cash flow would be 1, and then we have 400 for the next cash flow. Enter, down, down, then 600, down, down, and finally 800. After you're done entering the cash flows, you push this button, NPV, and enter your rate, which is 12%. Remember, for the calculator, we use whole numbers for the rate. And then you use down arrow and then compute. So the present value of the 4 cash flows, 4 unequal cash flows that you see here, would be discounted at 12%, would be $1,432.93. Now let's check out the Excel. So for this one, we have the discount rate We have the cash flows in year 1, 2, 3, and 4. All we need to do is just find the present value of each of these cash flows. So for this one, for the first $200 cash flow, we have the rate. Since we are going to use the same rate, you can press F4 on your keyboard to lock this cell. If you see the dollar signs before the column and row, that means that if you drag this column, that won't change. So we have number of periods would be 1. I'm not going to put a dollar sign before A and 8 because I want this to move as we go down. And then the payment would be 0, and the future value would be the $200 that we have. If you drag this down, you find the present value of each of these cash flows, and then you need to add them up. That gives you the same answer, 1,493. So let's look at another example. Your broker calls you and tells you that he has this great investment opportunity. If you invest $100 today, you will receive $40 in 1 year and $75 in 2 years. If you require 15% return on this investment, should you take on this investment? So I'm just going to do this in the calculator just to show you that this is probably not a good investment. So cash flow, I'm going to clear the cash flow function. So you receive $40 in 1 year. And 75 in 2 years. And if your required rate of return is 15, the present value of the two cash flows that you will receive is going to be $91.49. The present value would be $91.41 versus the cost of $100. So of course it doesn't make sense to invest in this opportunity because it will cost more than what it's worth. And then finally, let's look at another example. You are offered the opportunity to put some money away for retirement. You will receive 5 annual payments of $25,000 each, beginning in 40 years. How much will you be willing to invest today? So you just want to put down one payment, one lump sum today to receive the series of cash flows starting from year 40. And your discount rate is 12%. All you need to do is to use the cash flow function again. Here we can use frequency. So as you can see, from year 1 to year 39, you're not going to receive anything. So your cash flow would be 0. So cash flow 0 is 0. Cash flow 1 would also be 0. But now we have frequency. You have the same cash flow over and over for 39 years. So the frequency would be 39. Press enter. Then you go down. Then you will receive the next cash flow. So just keep in mind, even though if it's in 40 years, but because you used frequency, you have cash flow too. The next cash flow would be $25,000. And then again, we have frequency, we have 5 of them. So 5. And then we can calculate the NPV discounted at, what was the rate? 12%. So if you put down $1,084 today, you can receive $25,000 starting from year 40 for 5 years. Okay, so let's look at the Excel sheet. In this one, I already have the cash flows here. 39 years of zero cash flows and 5 years of $25,000 each. So I can calculate the present value of the first one, F4 to lock it. And then we have number of periods would be this first year. Payment is 0, and then future value would also be 0 because you receive $0 in year 1. I can drag this down to the 44th year. We'll see that the present value of the cash flows you will receive would be 1,084. Exactly the same number that we had from the calculator. I hope you find this video useful, and thank you for watching.